The greatest enemy to a great life is a good life. What do I mean by that? I mean, when people get comfortable, when they get to a spot where they feel good, they feel like they don't have to worry about too much, or things feel comfortable enough that they're not super worried, they'll get complacent and they'll just stay there. And so when you get to that point where, and that doesn't mean everything has to be perfect. That doesn't mean that your bills may not be tight or there may not be some struggles here and there and different things going on, but you're comfortable enough and you're managing enough that you don't want to push it any further because you don't want to risk it all blowing up. And so what's crazy about that is when you think about how little what the low barrier of comfort needs to be for people to just stay stagnant and risk blowing it up, when in reality you're not that happy with what you have. And again, that's not for everyone, but for some people, this is the way they think and the way they feel is they're so comfortable with where they're at, they don't want to risk blowing it up by pushing it, yet they're struggling, they're barely getting by, but they're comfortable, they're good. And because they're good, they stay right there. And so that's why they say like the greatest enemy of a great life is the good life, because the good life can make you feel comfortable enough that you just stay where you're at. And so what's interesting is I've heard Tony Robbins talk about this, but people come up and be like, "Hey, why do I have these problems? Why am I this? Why am I that? Why did my wife leave me? Why am I, all these different things? Why don't my kids like me?" And it's like I was a good man, I was a good husband, I was a good dad, I was good. And so we equate doing a good job to getting a good result. But in reality, that's not the way the world works. If you do a good job, you're probably going to get a poor result. And if you do a great job, you're still probably only going to get a good result. And so to get the things we want, we really have to do not even just excellent, but an outstanding job to really push ourselves and elevate ourselves up higher. And so that's why a lot of times we think, oh, I did a good job. I I was a good person. I was a good husband. I was a good wife. I was a good mom or a good dad, and I was good. I was good. But the problem is that when you're just good, the results aren't good. They're normally poor to bad. And so whenever we are living those lives, we're like, oh, we're good. Well, oh yeah, we have a pretty good life. Nothing to complain about. Pretty good life. And I do believe you should be grateful, but don't lie to yourself either. So, oh, I have a pretty good life, and I'm behind on my bills, and I can barely pay for things, and this, and this, and you know, oh yeah, we have a pretty good relationship. We fight 6 days out of 7, and we don't talk to each other half the time, but we're pretty good. Like, no, maybe we need to do some work. Maybe if we're struggling here, we need to learn some new skills. Maybe if we're struggling in a relationship, we need to figure out how to communicate better, how to hear one another and talk to one another, and figure out what do we need to do to mend or grow this relationship into something we want it to be. And so we have to be careful not to get our stuff stuck in a good life, in a good situation, because sometimes good can be a mask for comfortable. And sometimes when we're comfortable, we just let things linger. We let bad relationships linger. We let poor financial situations linger. We let good health linger. And we're all guilty of that. I'm guilty of that. I know that for sure. Where it's good enough. I'm pretty healthy. I'm good. Um, but that good turns into, oh, well, you're 10, 15, 20 pounds overweight. Oh, you have this condition. Oh, you have this medical thing going on. You're pretty good, but good doesn't get good results. Good gets poor to bad results. And so we have to be careful. Don't get stuck in comfortable. How do we push from good to great? How do we chase something more? Be grateful for what we have while we chase to achieve more. I think it's a really big thing that a lot of us can get stuck in. I know I've gotten stuck there before, and it's hard not to fall into that trap. Sometimes you're like, man, I feel pretty good about where I'm at. Things are going pretty well. I can't complain. Uh, Again, we have to be careful because the enemy of a great life is a good life, and we have to make sure that not we should definitely be grateful for what we've been blessed with and what we have, but don't use that as an excuse not to go after more of what you're being pushed to do. A lot of times we'll sit in complacency, we'll sit in gratitude because in truthfulness we're scared to go towards what we're being called to next. So I'll give a personal example of this. Whenever we built our business here, the first few years, we had it to a point where the business was doing really well. I was making a good bit of money. Everything was good. We'll call it borderline pushing to great as far as like financial things. Maybe not balance and lifestyle and spending time with my family, but from a financial standpoint, we were doing really well. Um, but we had that good, comfortable lifestyle, what we wanted, but we were being called to do something else, and that was to go and help plant a church. So that meant at the time we thought to move and plant this church, we were going to have to leave that behind and go start over somewhere else. So we were going to have to leave the comfort, being comfortable, having a good, friend situation, a good church situation, a good business situation, good income situation. We're going to have to leave that, go somewhere else, and start over. So we're going to have to leave comfort to go to uncertainty. That's something that most of us don't want to do. And because of that, most people don't. They stay in the comfort because they don't trust the uncertainty. But, luckily it worked out for us. The church plant ended up being a lot closer to home than what we thought. We were able to keep our business. But before we knew that was going to happen, we thought we were going to, potentially a few different states. And we were willing to set that down and move on to the next thing. And I have no doubt it would have worked out there either way. I just think God had a plan and we followed it, and He would have provided for us in one way or another. Whether even if our income went down drastically, we would have made that work and be able to do everything. And so I just think that we can get stuck in comfort, and that being glued to the comfort and fearing the uncertainty is why we keep our lives where they're at, and we keep lives that we don't necessarily love, that we don't necessarily want to be in, because they're comfortable. And because the comfort feels better than the uncertainty, we stay there, it's a quicksand. You can't really move, and you're slowly sinking down, and it's going to take you away. But it's comfortable enough that you don't want to fight against it, or you don't want to go into the uncertainty of not knowing what's going to happen. And so I really just do, I believe truly that you have to be willing to go up against the uncertainty and go for something greater. That doesn't mean make poor decisions or make dumb decisions